Hi again, everybody. Welcome into an all-new episode of When the Game Ends. It's episode 25. Alongside my co-host, Mike Carmen. My name is Ben Holden. Carmi, it's great to see you as always. And I think this one for both of us has special meaning, certainly. I mean, all the people we have on, there's some kind of connection, but certainly with our guest here on episode 25, Frank Mazzocco. You're tied to him from living in Minnesota and playing at Minnesota, and he called your games for 4 years. And Frank knows this, and I know we'll get into this, but he was a guy when I started as a play-by-play guy in 2004 that I gravitated to. He was the best in the country at college hockey back then, and we've become friends the last few years, so we're stoked to have him on, man.
Oh, I couldn't be more excited about this one. I've known Frank, I've heard Frank a lot longer than I've known him. Let's put it that way. Listening to Gopher games as a kid, it's truly an honor, and I'm excited that we get to have him on. And it's kind of fun to flip the script on him. I'm used to him asking me questions, so we'll see how I do asking him questions. I'm sure I'm not going to hold up to the legendary Frank Mazzocco, but very excited to catch up with him.
All right, well, let's bring him in without further ado. There he is, recently retired, looking great. Still got the goatee going on. Frank, great to see you, man. How are you?
Ben, Mike, great to see both of you guys. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely,
of course,
man.
We were Ben and I have been talking about having you on for a while, and I finally was like, did you tell Frank he's coming on next week? we got to lock him in. So we're excited to have you here.
Yeah, we are. So Frank, I'm gonna go down a little memory lane path for you. As we talked before Carmi got on, we had a little technical stuff we worked through, and you and I were chatting, and we do like to go through the guest career. You are the first broadcaster that we've had on, so respect for that. All former athletes at this point, but so your first job, I remember you telling me this story, and feel free to elaborate on it, but I'm first going to just get a reaction from you. Doc Emmerich was on Dan Patrick's show. There you go. There's the reaction. Doc Emmerich was on Dan Patrick's show, I believe today, and Patrick asked him what he's doing in retirement, and Doc said he's doing oftentimes dog walking play-by-play and sometimes in the grocery store. What are you doing before we dive into that story with you and Doc? What are you doing in retirement? Are you doing anything broadcasting-wise?
Nope, dropped it. Not like a hot potato or anything, but I dropped it. I moved on. It was, I should have done the math before, but my first game was in '77. There's a tie to Mike Emmerich, which I'll bring in when you want me to, but it was a long time, and I don't know if I'm a little bit ADD or I just want to do different things, and so I've always had this photography bug and started shooting seriously all around the turn of the century. And so it's keeping me busy, and it's allowed me to kind of walk away and stay busy and do something I love.
As far as the photography, sorry, Ben, I was just going to say, as far as the photography stuff goes, Frank, what's kind of your go-to? What do you like photographing the most? Or is it more like scenery, or are you doing, realist stuff like animals? Like what's your thing?
I could do portraits twice a day. I just love doing people pictures. I would love to do some street photography. I mean, there's been people who have been great artists at it. They've made some money at it. But in the new era of internet, social media, kind of gets a little creepy sometimes. You got to be careful how you do your street photography. But yeah, I love people pictures. I always have. Got a little pop-up here that I got to get rid of. It. You probably can't see it, can you?
We can't see it, Frank. So we're going to get back to the Emmerich. We're going to get back to the Emmerich story. But since Carmi asked you that, I got to go there. So our good pal Craig Cotter, a.k.a. Jupiter, does the Gopher Puck Live podcast with our boy Viggs. So Jupiter knew from Twitter, and I think he had texted me a couple days ago and heard that you were going to come on with us. And he's like, how cool is that? And I said, it's very cool. So he shared with me, I don't know if you can make that out. You know what that is?
Oh, that one? Yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So your father served in the war, World War II, right?
Right.
So tell us the story. It's amazing what you did. We want to hear it, and we want you to share it with our audience.
What he did was he served for, I don't know if it was 4 years or not. I know he got drafted when my sister was a year and a half old. This is World War II, so it's 1943, 44. He got drafted. Man, he didn't want to go to the war. He had a wife and a daughter to look after.
Mm-hmm.
He did his time. I'm not sure if he made sergeant or not, but anyway, he did his time. And then the picture you showed there, at the end of the war, he and a buddy were both photo buffs. So they were in the cleanup operation in Germany after the war ended, which would have been in 46, I think. Anyway, they somehow came across a box of glass plate negatives, which we just don't hear about anymore. But instead of putting a sheet of plastic film in your camera, you use this glass plate and you exposed it to light. And this box, which had German writing all over it, so I'm assuming it was some kind of war booty. They scarfed up, from some, German headquarters or whatever. That box was sitting in the family darkroom. I've had a darkroom since I was a kid, in a box, and it was labeled "Do not open." And being the very obedient child that I was, I never opened it. And then I never asked him any questions about it. And I really regret the fact that I didn't dig into it until I closed out his house and moved all of his negatives to my house. And I thought, now's the time. I think I can safely open this box without getting scolded, right?
Yeah.
And it's these glass negatives. Wow. So I did a little online research and to find out how I could scan them and find out that it's just as simple as scanning film or a print. So there were 25, 30, something like that. And what he and his buddy had done was to make portraits of the guys that were in their outfit. Now, I don't know company from division from brigade, but these were the handful of guys that they were with in Germany to do this cleanup stuff. And he got them in their dress uniform, posed very nicely. And the pictures are just gorgeous because they're on a larger format than a normal film would be. And then the one that you showed me, now I don't know if that was the original historic picture or not, that appeared in a Stars and Stripe magazine.
I think it was from your Instagram that Jupiter snapped. He sent 3 or 4 of them. So
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So there's this picture of this weary soldier that appeared in Stars and Stripe magazine, and it was an actual war picture taken by a war photographer. And this guy looked just beat to hell, like he'd been through the war, right? And so the war is over now, and my dad and his buddy, and I got a feeling my dad's buddy said, "Hey, Nick, you kind of look like this guy." My dad's name was Nick, by the way, Carmi.
Okay.
He says, I'm sure he said something like, "Hey, Nick, you look like this guy in the Stars and Stripe picture. Let's get you all dirtied up and muddied and put your boots on and have you pose like he did." So they took they made a photo of my dad in the same pose. And
cool.
So, like I say, I'm not sure which one made it on Instagram, but I've tried to post both of them to show that it wasn't like plagiarism or anything. So that's cool. The story of the glass negatives.
Very cool. Carmi?
That is cool. Yeah, Ben was showing me the pictures through the camera. I'm going to have him send them to me over the phone so I can get a better look, but that's really incredible. Yeah. So real quick, I know Ben wants to go back to his story, but so it sounds like photography. I was going to ask when you got into photography, but it sounds like it's been a part of your life since you were a kid. Is that true?
Yeah. My 6 or 8 years old, my dad gave me a little Kodak box camera, and I started shooting pictures. We lived in 3 houses when I was a kid. There was a wet dark room in all 3 of them. My dad built them. So I always had access to a dark room, and God love him. He was, a blue collar worker, but he never said to me, "You're shooting too much film, or you're wasting too much paper, or you're using too many chemicals." He just let me go. And I just kind of learned on the fly like that. And he and I would spend hours in the dark room. It was great. Just great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool stuff.
So your transition into retirement had been like a lifetime and a lifelong passion then, because Is that mainly what you're doing now, Frank? Is the photography and just kind of giving everything you can to that?
I have to clean the house twice a month. And I have
Is that new?
No.
This sounds oddly like a honey-do list. I feel like I get a few of those as well.
It was a condition of employment. If I wanted clean clothes, I had to do the housework.
It's a good deal.
Oh,
That's not a bad deal.
No, it's not a bad deal. And actually, in retirement, I tell everybody in the summer I look forward to cutting the grass once a week. I get a good hour and a half workout walking behind the mower. And then every other week it's in the house. And I can break a sweat cleaning the house. So I consider that good.
That's awesome. So let's go back to the Doc Emmerich story. Because really, if I remember right, I got to tell you, that night that you and Wally and I sat in that hotel restaurant bar in Columbus, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago. When Micheletti came in, Freddie got COVID, so they threw Micheletti on the plane, and he did the series with me on television. That was one of the most memorable nights that I've ever had talking with people, and it was awesome, Frank. And you shared the story about Doc Emmerich. 1977, your first job, you worked in Muskegon, and you went to Port Huron where the Flags played, and Doc was the PR and the radio guy. I'm going to let you pick it up. What do you recall from that moment, and how cool of a moment is that to look back on now, all these years later?
The cool part about it is that Doc was the same then that he was through his career. And that was my first broadcast. I had done like 3 years in a radio TV news shop, but I had not done professional play-by-play until that night. And what made it, I don't know if it was harder or not, but it was the beginning of January when I got the job.
Right.
Muskegon Mohawks just gone through some bad hires or whatever, and they fired a guy in the middle of December. And I went up to Muskegon on Christmas night with my dad, and Moose Lalo offered me the job on Christmas night, which happened to be the night that Alvin White and Eddie Pazunski got into a near stick duel at center ice. And I thought, holy cow, what am I getting myself into here? I mean, they were squared off. No one was hit, and I'm sure the penalties were minors. But anyway, so that was my introduction. I got the job like the 9th of January, my first game. We were going to Muskegon. And back in the day where you had to carry a telephone, literally carry a dial telephone in a box, because that was your connection back to the station.
Wow. And
I'm setting up in the Port Huron press box, and I go into their office to get their game notes and their stats. And there's Mike Emmerich, and he's just walking me through everything. And he says, if there's anything you need, just let me know. And I mean, I could have said, can you sit in? Can you come up and do color with me? I need somebody at my side. But Mike was doing games on radio in Port Huron. He had the notes and the stats, and he knew the predicament I was in coming in middle of the season. He was a champion. And then when I finally got around to doing North Star games here, Wally Shaver and I were producing the games for 2 or 3 years for the TV station here. And so we were doing all the production in the intermissions. And at that time, there was no, studio talk. You went back, you had to build a feature. You had to build something to fill, because that's all you had. And so we produced our own features on players, did the editing, and then we started sharing with Mike Emmerich, because Mike was doing kind of either a quirky look at the NHL, some odd scenes that he picked up and shared with other broadcasters. And then, we'd bicycle our stuff out to him, and he'd ship his stuff back to us. And so we were trading intermission features, and so stayed connected and had a really great relationship with him for my years in the NHL. He's a prince.
Awesome.
He's a prince.
Yeah. I was just saying, anybody that's watched NHL hockey like knows the name, right? Like he's a legend from that aspect. What were some of the things? It sounds like he was almost a little bit of like a mentor of you, guiding you into what you were doing and did for 35 years. What were some of the things you took away from him? Like specifically things maybe he did that you picked up on that you're like, I want to do that, or this really works.
Be a gentleman. I mean, I never, back in the day, didn't have any chance to listen to him. He was down at the other end of the press box. The radio stations that we were on didn't go across the state or anything. So I really didn't know what his work was like until he broke in on the national scene. But that was the main takeaway that I had from him, is just treat people the way you'd like to be treated, because everybody needs some help. He was just a super guy, thorough with stats, creative, clever with his features, and he just does. I won't say did, because he's still alive, but he does things the right way.
I'm always so impressed by guys like you and Ben and you guys with your stats and your knowledge. Like Ben always pulls something out of left field, and I'm like, really? That's why? Oh, okay. So I'm always impressed by it, because like I try to do my research. I'm like, I can find a few things, but I've only stumped Ben once on the show so far. But that's just always something I found, like the preparation, like from a player perspective. I remember being like, this has got to be the greatest job in the world. You're announcing hockey, you're talking to the guys. There's so much behind the scenes that goes into what you guys do, and filling behind and color and all of that, and being able to rattle off facts. It's always impressive to me. I never realized how much truly goes into that. So that's always been something really cool for me.
Yeah, thanks. And Ben, I think you might agree that you prepare, and if you use 10% of what you prepare for, you're lucky. I mean, yep. 90% gets left on the cutting room floor. And because you have to be prepared for, I won't say you have to be, you should be prepared for every eventuality. That means having a little background on everybody who's on the ice and stuff like that. And, it's about a 9-to-1 ratio. 1% or 10% makes it on. I don't know if you guys take commercial breaks in here, but if there's ever a commercial break, I'm going to go back in that closet there, Mike. I'm sure I have 4 pages of paper, game by game, every goal you scored, and where you scored it, and how many power play goals, and I can tell you your streaks and when you were not playing. I
don't know if we want to advertise my streaks.
we don't take breaks, Frank. But if you wanted to do that, just say when you want to go. If you want to get up and go get it now, we can. I can put you in the green room, and then when I see your back,
this won't take but 5 seconds, because you gotta have stuff at my fingertips.
All right, so we're gonna put you in the room, and then so you're out, Frank.
I'm gonna regret this.
Awesome.
I think.
This is awesome. So I want to follow up to what Frank said there, Carmi, and I'm hoping he can still hear me. I'm sure he can. But so I wish I'd heard this line. It's to Frank's point about preparing. So I remember a line from Jeff Monken, the head football coach in Army, who I dealt with for 9 years. And during COVID, we didn't know week by week whether they were going to play a football game, right? Mm-hmm. And Tina Servasio, who was our sideline reporter, she asked Jeff, she goes, what are you, or how did she word it? I forget how she worded it, but his response was, we're not preparing for anything. We're preparing for everything. And that to me, and I'm sure Frank, can touch on this if he wants to when we bring him back in after he gets all your stats. But
shouldn't take
like I'm always over prepared, and I guarantee you Frank was always over. Shouldn't take him that long. I guarantee you Frank was too. So because I know how good he was. I know how good he was. Number one at calling the game and getting you involved and engaged and excited and all the things he did. But his preparation too, I know, was very good. Frank, I'm going to bring you back in here. You good to go?
I got egg on my face.
So were you listening to what I said about that? Like you're not preparing for anything. You got to prepare for everything because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Know what's going to happen. Doesn't happen so much in college, but in the minor leagues, the glass could break.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then you're working alone, and what are you going to do?
Yep. Yeah.
Mike, I am embarrassed, and
boy.
I am sorry. You're not in here. I must have.
Carmi.
I think you saved me. You just saved me. It's okay.
I opened up the C's, and Nick Checo is on the top there, and I got him and Chris Checo, and then Mike Crowley. I think I heard of him.
So,
and amazingly, one thin page on Ben Clymer. Not to slam him or anything, but
wow.
No, Mike and I actually coach together, Frank Crowley. We're coaching AAA together right now, his younger boy.
See, what's interesting is I only have 3 pages on Mike. So somewhere along the line, I decided to scrap this system.
Wow.
And I'm not sure why.
So now that you have this thing out, who do you have the most on? Who do you feel like, without looking, or maybe you just know, who do you have the most on in all? You did the Gophers for 35 years. You were in television and radio for almost 50. But in terms of the Gophers, who do you think you have the most stuff on, Frank?
I would have no way of knowing, because now I realize that my handwritten brain stopped at about 97 or 98, I think.
Oh.
I'm just going through. That's the other thing I'm doing in retirement. I'm trying to thin out. My wife is saying, you got to get rid of those media guides. Okay.
It's your feng shui, right? That's what I always tell my girlfriend. I like that. I remember that game. I remember that moment, right? In terms of players, I kept some scripts. I sent Wally Shaver a couple of years ago. I came across the script that we did for our very first Gopher hockey broadcast, which not like a paragraph script, but our rundown sheet of commercial breaks and what we were going to do and who the features were. And I found that in my archives, and I sent that to him. So that goes back to 85. That was in Denver. I don't know who, the most stuff would probably be whoever scored the most, but I think I got some of my best memories with Mike, and I'm going to drag him into this. Drag him in.
Mankato, 3 games.
There you go. I knew it was coming.
That's my claim to fame at this point. Jupiter brings it up all the time too.
Yeah.
What a weekend! What
happened?
Well, Frank, why don't you tell you tell the story? You're the guest. I want you to talk.
Now I got to remember what goal you scored. Did you score the winner in Game 3?
It was game 2. Luch scored in game 3, I believe.
Who was that?
Tony Lucia scored in game 3, I think.
Yeah. Okay. 3 overtime games. We played the equivalent. They played the equivalent of 5 hockey games. All 3 games went overtime. I think 2 of them were double overtime.
Mm-hmm.
It was some of the best hockey I can remember. Alex Kangas was the Gophers goaltender.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he played all 3 games, but his uncle might have been in Rochester, recently sent me a 3 DVD set of all 3 games.
Wow, that's cool.
I sat down and watched the first period of game 1, and I said, I need a breather. I can't sit through the whole game. I mean, it was that intense. It was that intense through the whole weekend. And and Wally and I still talk about it, because he was doing radio with Glenn Sonmore at the time. I had Doug Woog with me on TV, and Wooger was off the charts with his one-liners, and it was just I don't want to disrespect Minnesota State at all on this, but to say that, considering the rivalries with Wisconsin, with UMD, with North Dakota, and maybe if you go to the old days with Michigan, I mean, that was one of the greatest series of all time. Those 3 games with those guys. Now, the Gophers opened on the road, which meant they finished in the bottom half of the league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lost the first game and won the next 2, right?
Yep.
Right, Carmen?
Yes.
That's the way it went, right?
Yeah. Trevor Briss scored game 1. I remember that, because I went to high school with Trevor.
And they were, all right, obviously all 1-goal games, but weren't there 2 shutouts out of the 3?
Now you're testing my memory a little too much. I'm not sure.
Wow. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm sure one game went nothing through 3 periods. I'm pretty sure that happened.
If that's probably the first game then, if I have to recall, because I want to say my game and Tony's game winners were either 2-1 or 3-2 games, I believe. I could be making that up completely, but I'm almost positive mine at least was a 2-1 game. But yeah, I was going to say those games. I don't remember every game I played in college. I remember that weekend. Again, not necessarily specifics, but it's a weekend that you will never forget in terms of how that felt, what it was like. I mean, that launched us that year because we did have a very subpar regular season. I mean, I think we finished 7th that year in the conference, 7 out of 10 teams. So Mankato got us at home for them for all 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that series projected us into the Final 5, which we lost in the finals, I think, to Denver. That Final 5 was an exciting one too. We had that last second goal against St. Cloud, the one game. And then, but then, of course we squeak our way in the NCAAs and play the eventual champion BC Eagles. But it at least got us to the point where we made a little bit of a run at the end, that series in Mankato.
So I'm going to put my interview hat on here. Carmi, take us through your game-winning goal.
So what's funny about this is I've been on GPL twice during the season this year, and Jupiter has played the clip of you announcing it both times. So it's relatively fresh in my mind. And it's actually, the side note here is the goalie for Mankato is Mike Zacharias. I skate with Mike every Monday morning.
Oh, wow.
We have a group of college. He plays out. He doesn't play goalie anymore. We have a group of guys that skate together, some former Gophers, some other D1 guys. We have a really good skate, and it's fun. But anyways, I never fail to remind Mike about it periodically just to keep him in check. But Derek Peltier had passed me the puck, and I was coming through center ice, and all I know is it was kind of like a 1-on-2 scenario, and I just decided I was going to pull the puck in and try to shoot through the screen. I would love to say I did the rest on purpose, but the angle and the way that puck bounced, like Ben, I mean, I ripped it. It was a rip, but it was a toe drag wrist shot, hits the defenseman's shin pad as he's going down, ricochets off the ice flat. Like the puck is just spinning flat, keeps all of its velocity and goes right under the bar by Zacharias' head. And you can hear the bar is plain as day on the video. And I didn't see it go in. I heard it hit the bar. I think my interview after the game, I was like, I didn't even see it. It was just pure relief and joy and everything else to keep playing because we had to win that game or our season was done that night.
Right.
Well, I tried to find it on YouTube. The first 2 things that came up, guys. Look, there's a young Mike Carmen right there in Lake Erie.
When you met me, Ben.
And then the next thing is you got into a tilt here with Gabe Dumont.
Yeah, you're announcing that tilt, I believe, Benny.
I was, but I did not see. I was scrolling. I did not see the goal. We'll have to find it, man.
We'll just ask Jupiter. He seems to have it locked and loaded.
Yeah.
Carmi doesn't look any different, Mike, but then.
No, he's aged well, man. He's aged well. He has.
You guys are too nice. No, real quick before we keep going, though, Ben, Frank.
Yeah, go ahead.
Getting to hear that clip is so cool to me still to this day because – I was saying a little bit in the beginning, like talking, Ben and I before we brought you in, like I grew up listening to you guys and, hearing it's still anytime I got to hear my goals called by you. And I think I told you this when we were at the golf tournament last year. It always brings back like how cool and how surreal it still is to me that I got to be a Gopher and all the stuff I listened to from you and Doug and Glenn and Wally, like getting interviewed by Glenn and Wally with the headset on in Michigan Tech was still some of the coolest things. Cause I'm like, I grew up listening to you guys on the radio when I was a kid. And now I get to be the one who someone else is listening to back home on the radio. So I just want to let you know, like every time I hear that stuff, it still is like, seems surreal to me that, you guys are announcing, my name. And so that was really cool.
Thanks. It's a great feeling. I honestly, I had to retire before the impact that I might have had on people came through. But Mike, I'm going to flip it a little bit. Doing Gopher hockey. I mean, you guys were kings to me. You were gods. I mean, man, you played a great brand of hockey. It was exciting every night. There was no quit. So I mean, it took me by surprise when you left school and you had another life, for crying out loud. Because I thought, I thought, how do these guys go to class on Monday? I mean, life is so good on the ice. Anyway, we were through a real golden age of broadcasting at that time. To be able to do, Ben, you made a very kind comment about what you thought about me in terms of college hockey, but we were the only ones that were doing 40 games a year. You just couldn't, I couldn't have dreamed that job when I got out of college. Could not have dreamt doing 40 college hockey games. It just didn't exist. And we're back to the situation now where it still doesn't exist.
No, I feel the same way. I mean, when I started, what I mentioned to you in 2004, that's when I left local news. And I had 4 or 5 years before I went to Cleveland, and Carmi and I met, where I was doing 60 a year. I mean, I was doing stuff locally like you were for Comcast. I was doing CBS. I was doing ESPN. It's all changed so much. I mean, I definitely want to get into that with you as well. I mean, I want you to share. I don't know if I even know this. Carmi may not either. I don't know. Like, how did you land the Minnesota Golden Gopher job way back when when was it? The mid 80s, right? When did you land that job, and how did it happen for you, Frank? How did you get there?
Luck, stars aligned, right place, totally right place at the right time. This is the long answer to your short question, but my minor league.
Okay, we got time. We got plenty of time.
Okay. My minor league stays were Muskegon, a couple years, Milwaukee, 3 years, Cincinnati, an ill-fated half year, and then they went bankrupt.
Yep.
And I told my wife going into Cincinnati, this is it. If there's no NHL job after this, I'm done. We're not going to bounce around. We've got 2 kids now, and that would be it. So that job folded. I said, okay, your choice. Where do you want to go? She said, we're going to Minneapolis. This is her home state. And that was in June. And in November, the North Stars began their over-the-air pay TV called Spectrum Sports. Yeah. And I guess I was in the right place at the right time. I was selling over-the-air TV subscriptions, and the Spectrum wound up getting the broadcast rights, and I was in the producer's face twice a week. And so I got the North Stars, stayed there 5 years, and within the 5 years, then there became a little bit of a war between 2 stations in town as to who was going to broadcast the Gophers. And sure enough, after about 3 years with the North Stars, another station here, Channel 29 at the time, decided they were going to do both North Stars and Gophers. And Wally and I were in the right place at the right time, and it fell open that way. So again, it was really, really lucky. And it turned out, again, because there was a war between the 2 stations, there was bidding for every round of playoffs. And Wally and I did our first Gopher games in the first round of the playoffs in Denver.
Okay.
So, I mean, pure luck. I mean, luck, good fortune, whatever it was, right place, right time. And I had some friends going to bat for me, so it was pretty lucky. Producers said, I had to give you this job because I was afraid your kids were going to starve if you.
Oh, man. You weren't selling much, huh? That's great, man.
It's funny. You've been a part of the Gophers forever. And I remember, I think my first memories, it was MSC was the channel. And then obviously turned into Fox Sports North, which is what it was when I was at school. And I still hear people complain to me to this day about it, about the TV schedule now and how it's so hard, and not hard, but like it's more of a hassle to find the Gopher hockey games, right? No matter, you got to find Big 10 Plus, or you got to get on Fox 9 Plus, or whatever it is, or you got to search for it. I do miss the days, and this is when you and Wooger were calling the games, that you knew where the Gophers were on. It was on FSN North. No questions asked. We were spoiled rotten the fans and the players that we were on, a national broadcast every night, or at least a regional broadcast, or every weekend. So
Ben, we use the term destination viewing, which I don't think
it was.
We don't use that anymore, do we?
No, because there's so much stuff. And I said to you, Frank, and the conversations we've had, and like I'd be at Yost on a Friday night, and especially if you guys were playing North Dakota, I get done with my game and race home 20 minutes and get you guys on the satellite, man. That's what I did. That's what I did when I started as a full-time broadcaster. And if you don't know, those out watching, those shows were produced just like pro games are produced. I mean, they were a top-notch broadcast and, part of the change, right? I mean, we mentioned that earlier. Frank, I loved how you said the players were gods. They certainly looked at you that way. Talk to us a little bit about, some of the relationships you had with the different men that sat next to you throughout your career. And you had a great list of guys. And obviously you and Wally are iconic there, but there were other men that you worked with. Share some memories. What stands out from some of the other guys you worked with over the years?
Well, we've mentioned Doug Woog's name quite a bit.
Yeah.
That was always a bit of a rodeo. God love him.
From coach to broadcaster, I've been there. That's not easy.
The thing about Doug, he would, he came up with these off the wall Yogi Berra type things. And Jupiter has the tape on this one, but my ultimate all-time favorite was when Wooger and I were talking about the national junior team coming back from the World Junior Tournament, which was in Vancouver. And, he said, yeah, and they should be back in time and be able to play games next weekend or something like that. And then he breaks into, well, boy, that travel is nothing like if you have to play at Novosibirsk. And I just let him go. That's the time you're just going to let the rope out and let him go where he wants to go. And he says, and for those of you who don't know, Novosibirsk is in Russia. It's east of the urinals.
Classic.
Man, hey, but before you keep going, Frank, it's so funny because
love it.
The tangents that Wooger would go on sometimes. I don't know how you kept things on the rails, because like you said, you'd go into a random story or anecdote or something, or it was pretty entertaining for sure.
Yeah, like I say, it took a while. I learned when to give him the rope and just give him as long a leash as he wanted and let him go. And hopefully the game wasn't too close. And and then we had some doozies when we had to do a 3-man booth, because we were sending the feed to Wisconsin as well. So we'd have Tom Sagasor representing the East and Doug Woog representing the West. And it was those games, Ben, I did not prepare. I just had my roster and I let those two fight it out. And they would, argue about who made the better play and who had better attendance and stuff like that. And I let that go. Before Doug was Tom Reed. Tom and I did a long time. Tom was a golden man. He's still doing Wild Radio, color analyst there. Funny as heck. There are games when I would get my game face on and get tense and tight, and he'd crack a joke right before we would go on the air. One night I was getting really, really tense, and I looked at him and I thought he was tying his shoe. No, he was just pulling his pant legs up, just to break up the room a little bit. And Mike, did you play with Eric Wendell? Are you in the same era?
No, he was just before me. Probably graduated, I would say maybe 3-4 years before I came in, something like that.
We were out west. I'm pretty sure we were in Denver, and a puck came to Eric in the slot, and it just was in his glove, and he just threw it. He threw it in the net. It broke Tom up so bad that he flushed the contact out of his eye, and now he's hysterically laughing, and now I can't control. That was the only time in my career that I called for a commercial break. I said, "Can we go to a break now? We have to stop." Tommy was good. Fred Barrett was probably my longest. Well, Wally and we had such a checkered crisscross of when we did games together. There was a while in my North Star days, Wally was actually doing the color. Fred Barrett was doing color for the former defenseman. And I think I even gave John Davidson his cameo, his start.
Wow.
Hockey Night in Canada needed a place to hide him to get him some time, and they sent him here. So he did a couple of games with us. So my claim to fame is that I made him who he was.
That's cool. Very cool.
Did you like radio or broadcasting better?
Radio is far more fun.
Okay.
TV was far more lucrative, but radio is far more fun.
Why was it more fun?
Very accurate.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I mean, especially as towards the latter years that I was doing it, it just became more produced, more elements. Things were sold. Penalties were sold. Goals were sold. Keys of the game were sold. And you had to get all those sponsorships in. Replays were far more abundant than they were when I started. And you had to work those in. And it was then when I moved over to radio with Wally, I mean, we just sit down and we BS for 2.5 hours. We just talk about whatever came up on the ice, what we wanted to talk about. And it was just free flowing and easy. And we covered everything. We did it well. And by the way, Mike, that was a great question. You could turn yourself into a good broadcaster. That follow-up question is always the good one, isn't it, Ben?
That's correct. That's something we talked about. And yeah, he's coming into his own, Frank. I'm proud of him and happy to be doing this with him, man. It's great to see.
I've told Ben it has been such an adjustment for me to, I've given a lot of interviews, but interviewing people is a completely different animal, right? Like, not only do you need to be thinking about what your next question is going to be, but you need to be able to listen and be able to respond to what the person you just asked is saying. And I find myself sometimes like thinking of my next question, I'm like, oh, I got to respond to this first. So it's a learning experience, but it's been fun. I've had a good teacher in Ben.
That's really important, to listen and respond and to have that time to do that. That's another hard part about television. The player interview was 60 seconds between periods, a minute and a half at the most. You almost don't have time for a follow-up because you run into the commercial break. And that's another place where radio is good. We got a little bit more time and you can have a conversation more. I mean, TV, you can listen to how many TV interviews there are. And whoever's doing the interview has got question A, question B, and maybe question C. And it doesn't matter too much what the response to the first two are.
Well, that's like what I was saying earlier. Sorry, Ben, one more thing on that.
You're good.
Like the radio when I was growing up, because that was Glenn and Wally. And I remember listening to those. I don't remember watching as many interviews like as a kid on TV as I do remember being in the car coming back from a hockey game myself, or we had season tickets to the Gophers. So go to a game and be in the car ride home listening to the wrap up and the interviews. And that those are the ones that have stuck with me was the radio interviews. And that's probably what you just said. They are a little longer. They do get a little more in depth. There is more feedback versus just bang, 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 and you're out to commercial on TV. So that makes a lot of sense.
Ben, can I go? I've got years on both of you guys. So I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up with 2 baseball games almost every day. Yeah. Cubs and White Sox. Cubs played during the day, White Sox at night. Most times, that's where I learned about broadcasting, watching WGN television back then. And one of the things that I remember so much about watching baseball then was the rain delay. I mean, now there's a rain delay and you get a slide put up and that says, we'll be back, rain delay, check in later. In those days, the broadcaster would find a guest, they would haul somebody in from the press box and they would just talk. They would just have a conversation about baseball for half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it took to get that rain stopped. And boy, was that a great learning experience just to listen to those guys.
Well, yeah, now they go to a studio and the play-by-play in the booth they get a free pass, right? I mean, it's
right.
Carmi, I don't know if you'll know this name or not, but Frank, I'm sure you will. Jeff Zahn. Remember Zahn?
Jeff Zahn, yeah, but I can't place it.
Left-handed pitcher,
okay.
came up with the Dodgers 70s, was a Twin for a couple of years. He always talked about Captain Dynamite, how they blow him up in the Metrodome. But he was a guy like you were talking about Wooger there, and I never really got to meet Doug because I never crossed over with you guys doing the CCHA, and I didn't get to see you guys much. But it reminded me of Zahn in the sense, Frank, that like I'd said to you, like you went from coach to broadcaster. So Zahn says to me, the first game we ever did, we did like 50 together over 3 summers. He goes, "You teach me broadcasting, I'll teach you baseball." I said, "Deal." Because I didn't know a lot about baseball. And baseball is a very hard sport. I think it's the hardest sport to broadcast. What did you do any baseball? Yeah. Did you do any bit? What other sports did you do besides hockey?
Professionally, that's all.
That was it. Okay.
Just in college, I did football, basketball, baseball in college. Okay. But that was just one. That was just my senior year because that's all you were allowed to do then is just your senior year.
Yeah. So
I can see what you mean, though, Ben. Baseball's got so much downtime between everything. That's a lot of filler.
It's a lot of talking, man. And like, Frank was as good as they get, in our sport at preparing. So I'm sure that was never a problem for you. Like once you did the Gopher games, whether it was television or radio, because, I don't think a lot of people understand this. Like it's completely different. I mean, we're on television, so we can see it. We don't need to be as descriptive. So that's a different animal, man. And I have a ton of respect. I didn't do a lot of radio, Frank. The only radio I did really were the 2 years with Carmi, and I've all been television. So the versatility is incredible to me that you had. I'm curious now. I want to have a couple fun things for you before we finish here. But I want to ask you. Yeah, I want to ask you. And one involves your Mount Rushmore. So I'll tease you with that. But like, at what point did you get into your head like, okay, I might be done this year, I might be done next year? When did that all start for you about thinking about leaving the game and retiring?
Believe it or not, I was still on Fox.
Really?
Yeah, I just thought this can't go on forever.
Okay.
And as the games got a little harder to do, a little more overproduced, and I thought, do I want to do it forever? And so quite honestly, in 2009, I rented space in Minneapolis, and I poured my heart and soul into making a photography studio out of it.
Okay.
That was going to be my push into retirement. It didn't turn out that way, but my dad didn't raise a businessman. Sorry. So back in 2009, I thought, all right, if I get my feet on the ground in a couple of years and I can pull out of this, and all I need is just some retirement money and just pay the bills and stuff like that. But, so in 2010, then that TV job got yanked and I was off for a year, still had studio space, but never paid myself a dime. I mean, that just was the way the market was. And in 12, the opportunity came back, or 11, opportunity came back to do radio. And I thought, well, I can't pass up the cash. And I know radio is a lot easier and it'll be fun to do something. So, so I've been thinking about it for a while now. Seriously, I would say about 2 years. I probably did the last 2 years thinking, can't do this any much longer at all.
Okay.
I was getting words twisted. I was getting facts twisted. My brain wasn't working as fast. And I didn't want to go out pathetic. Plain and simple.
Well, and I imagine too, you talked about saying like 2009, you were kind of like starting to kick around the idea, right? And then, going back on the radio in 2011, I'm guessing what you talked about earlier with radio being more enjoyable and more, again, going back and working with Wally too, obviously, I'm sure it was great. That probably prolonged things for you more than it would have if you'd gone back into TV, right? Kind of sounds that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would have been a tough call if someone offered me a TV gig in 11 or 12 again. I don't know that I certainly wouldn't have gone back with the management that was there at the time. But yeah, it just made it easier. And then I think even after 1 year or so with Wally, I just realized, we're different personalities. Not a great deal though. But once the game starts, once we start covering hockey, we're like brothers out there. I mean, we're thinking the same thing at the same time almost always, and that's kind of a neat feeling when you're working with somebody like that. And I'll say something and he might say, I was thinking the exact same thing, or he'll say something that was going to be my next question. We're just really in sync about what about the game needs to be covered and when it needs to be covered.
What do you miss about it, Frank? What's something, or maybe there's more than one thing that you miss today? Maybe there's not.
7:00 Friday night. The adrenaline rush. I do. It took me a while to go to my first game live and at Mariucci Arena. And when the players were announced and we were coming down to national anthem time, I was thinking about, the nervous energy I had in the booth at that time of night. I missed it. And then the Gophers did not play a very good first period that night. Mm-hmm. And I thought, boy, I'm glad I'm out. I don't have to explain what's going on.
That's good.
Love it.
Good. Hey, Benny, that's funny. I mean, I've said the exact same thing. Like, so Frank, my wife and I have season tickets. We have had them for about 5 years now for the games. And, we sit up top, like where the gold room is there. And there's not one game I go to where if we're there when the national anthem is playing, like in time for that, I have the nervous energy. Like, I'm like, why do I feel this way? It's been forever since I played, but it's such a cool feeling. And I'm sure the same for you. It brings back a rush of memories. And like, for me, like what it felt like standing on the blue line for that. And, for you up in the broadcast booth, like I don't think it'll ever go away.
No, and I hope not. I mean, I often thought that there were similarities between your job as a player and my job as a broadcaster. And that is that for you, when the puck drops, and for me, when that red light goes on, that's it. You go. Mistakes, whatever. You've just got to bring whatever best you've got that night, and you've got to do it. And that's the cool thing about the business. I mean, once that red light goes on, you go. And I knew I was going to stumble. There'd be mistakes, and you just have to cover for it and try to figure a way out around it. And that's, I do miss that adrenaline a little bit, and then that passes pretty quickly. And I pull the footrest up on the recliner and I watch some baseball, and it's kind of nice.
Especially after a bad first period, switch over to baseball.
Glad I didn't talk about that mess. Yeah. Frank, this may be tough for you, but I want to ask you your Mount Rushmore of moments just from the Gophers, like moments, the 4 biggest moments that you called in your career. And before you answer this, you can just answer this with a yes or no, or elaborate however you want to do it. Were you able to call the 02 and 03 games? Like, were you on radio, or was that all Wally?
Oh, no, I was off. No, that was all Wally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lay it on us. Start from 4-1. I want to hear your
4-1
moments as the voice of the Gophers.
All right. Well, you tell me who the best president up there is, and then I'll do 4-1 on you.
I'm going to go with
4-1's kind of hard, Benny. You might just have to let him pick 4.
All right, just go with 4.
I'll pick 4, and I'm not going to say that they are specific things.
Okay.
Might be at the very top, the WCHA Final 5. That might be the number 1. That weekend was as good as any national tournament any year. The intensity, there was meat on the bones. It was really good, and I Remember walking the hallways there outside the press box a number of times saying, boy, this is great. I don't know how long it's going to last. Nothing lasts forever, just one of those things. So that Final Five, WCHA, awesome. Awesome. Okay. I have a little bit of help in remembering a couple of other items. So 2 would be the series in Mankato. I mean, that would be in there among the best ever. I have a little help in remembering the Final Five game where Blake Wheeler's overtime goal won it against North Dakota. And I had sort of forgotten about it a little bit until the replay started showing up somewhere. And then the year of COVID, Fox North needed to fill time, and they pulled that game out of the archives. It's one of the first things that they did. Nice. And I sat and watched that, and I thought, holy crap. I forgot the intensity of that game. And it was all night long. That was a great game. Fourth moment is going to be a general moment. I know in the 90s and maybe after Lucia got there were a lot of number 1 versus number 2 battles at Mariucci Arena, and that place, the roof, the bolts were coming loose on the roof. The building was great. I mean, the intensity was there. Again, we're going back to what I consider golden era of Gopher hockey and television. Mike, some of those years then, and I'm sure you played against some really good CC teams. That was just fabulous stuff. So that's 4
for sure.
I almost got them in order too.
That's good.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Nicely done, Frank.
Hey, it's funny, Frank, that game, I watched it too. I remember at COVID, there's no sports on, nothing to do. And my wife, she went to the U, 2 years younger than me, but I think she said she went to 1 hockey game while she was there. We didn't know each other in college. But we watched that game together. And
obviously.
That's not nice, Ben. I just remember
she would have went to more games is what I meant.
Yeah. Sure you did.
That's what I meant.
No, just the intensity of that game. Same thing for me. Like I forgot because, hockey's changed so much now, right? Like I know the kids are so good. They're so skilled, but like a lot of times there isn't that meat and potatoes hockey with big hits and physicality. And, and I'm not talking about pushing and shoving in front of that. I'm talking about every hit being finished. And, I call it big boy hockey when I'm coaching the kids now. Like, we're in a big boy hockey game. That was a big boy hockey game. And it was anytime we played them.
Yeah.
But that game was incredible. I've never heard an arena that loud when Wheeler scored.
I think one thing what the Big Ten needs is a revised playoff structure. So you get some of those games, multiple playoff games. That's where you can really build some intensity over the years. It's going to take a while, but these one and done playoff games just don't quite build the same kind of fever that you get when you meet a team multiple times during the year. Big Ten is getting a lot better in terms of intensity and games play, but we still need at least one more team in there to do that. And those are great times, great games.
I'd love to see him find some way to revive that style of playoffs again, because that was all the teams in town for the weekend. And, I know the NCHC still does that, correct? They have everybody.
They're done with it now.
Are they?
They're done with it. They're going on campus this coming year. They're doing the same as the Big Ten. So
economics.
That's really what it is, man. So Frank, we only got a couple minutes here left. So I want to ask you, and I'll let Carmi finish up from here. But one of the things we like to ask our guests is, any advice you would give to somebody. And again, you're the first broadcaster we've had on, which is awesome. And I'm sure there'll be others. But any advice, like what do you tell people to kind of prepare themselves for when the game ends?
You have to have something to retire to. Not just retire, but you've got to retire to something. And I'm fortunate to have the photography stuff to do. I can't tell you how many negatives I want to scan and slides that I want to scan and 8mm movies that I want to, so I still have a lot of stuff that I want to do before I punch out. So you got to have something to retire to. And part of that goes to what I tell kids when they ask me about, careers in broadcasting, especially. I always tell them, have a plan B. And Ben, you might be able to appreciate this. My first job at a local radio station, a crusty old news director said to me, if you don't get fired in this business, you're doing something wrong.
That's true. That's true. I'll vouch 100% on that with you, Frank. Yep. It's true.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. So that's great, man. Carmi, you got anything else?
No, I think we covered pretty much anything I would have wanted to ask Frank, but I did want to touch on, I've kind of made the point already, but one of the coolest moments in recent years with this stuff and like meeting people and being around people that I referenced that golf tournament that's taken off in the last few years here, and just the alumni connection and different players and different generations and getting to see those guys is incredible. But when we honored the program honored Frank last year, it was last year, right? Frank, it wasn't last year. Yes. And they gave you that mural. And I remember like the emotion on your face is something I'll never forget, because it showed, as much as it means to us, like having you around and the legend that is Frank Mazzocco from a broadcasting standpoint, but to see like how much that moment meant to you was really amazing. And so just to be able to talk with you about all this stuff and rehash old memories and everything, it's, I didn't know I'd ever find myself on this side of the mic with you, but it was truly an honor to be able to do this with you, and I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Mike, I can't say thank you enough. I couldn't say thank you enough last summer either, but it's just such a wonderful group of people that have come through wearing the maroon and gold and pulling that jersey on. So thank you, Mike Carmen, and all the players that you played with before and after you as well.
That's awesome.
So are you going to be on the alumni softball team?
Let's go, Carmi. Suit it up.
I don't think so.
Let's go.
I don't think so. I got enough things going on. I don't know if I can take on being on a softball team too. And awesome. I don't know how I stack up. We got some of the guys have been playing softball for quite a while, like guys around my generation, and they've had some pretty competitive groups. I'm like, I don't know if I even make the cut.
I might get 2 years ago, I did a photo project all summer long. I chased them around and
was that Schmidt's team?
What's that?
Was that Nate Schmidt's team? Is that who you were following around?
I don't know if Schmidt was playing. No, I don't remember Schmidt.
That might be a different one, different story. But
I forget the name of the two teams, but anyway, I had a lot of fun. Carl Fish can hit the ball.
Okay. Yeah, there's no shortage of guys that played baseball and play hockey, right? So I can imagine some guys same way we hit a golf ball.
Oh yeah, you guys are great golfers.
Yes. All right. Well, Frank, this was awesome. Carmi and I knew this would be one of the funner ones we've done. So thanks for your time, man. And we're great to see you, and you look great and you sound great. I know you're happy, and we miss you in the biz, man, but you're doing the next phase of your life. So thanks for doing this and making time for us, Frank. We much appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Mike, let me know where we're going to bump into one another. And then tell me when you're coming to town. I'll clear some time.
I would love that. I'd love to see you again, and I will definitely do that. So for Mike Carmen, Frank Mazzocco, Ben Holden saying thanks for watching this episode of When the Game Ends, episode 25. We'll see you next time with an all-new one.